Hello and welcome to Two Girls in a Pod. I'm Sharon.
I'm Christy.
Welcome, everybody.
Hi, and we have a guest with us today. Her name is Srujana. We met her through, I believe, Erica Johnson. She was on a previous episode. We want to welcome you on today.
Hi, Sharon and Christy. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about your last name, and because people say, well, why did they introduce her by her last name? What is your last name? You pronounce it.
Yeah.
Grummalla, you can call me that.
Grummalla?
Yeah.
Okay. Was that like a version that we can say?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
So you worked with Erica. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. So I came into USA football around January as mental performance education intern. So it's my position's under the research and education department, but my specialty is mental performance. So that's how I know Erica. I actually volunteered for USA football around this time last year, which is when I actually met Erica. And then we were just talking and she told me about like how USA football takes in interns later in the year. And I just kept in touch with her. And whenever it happened, and all of it came together. But it was sort of, I always say like a serendipitous way of getting that internship, of me just on a random Saturday, just going to volunteer at this event that I've never like been at, heard of before, and just meeting like really lovely people, and then just all of this happening. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what exactly does that mean, mental performance, when you're talking about that?
Yeah. So I got my degree recently, my master's in sport and performance psychology.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So basically what mental performance is sport and like psychology for sport and performance. So it's using or developing psychological skills and using them in performance or sport or high-risk occupations or corporate business world, whatever it is. This is like the simplest way of saying it. So how athletes go to the gym for building up muscles, working out, this is a workout for your mind, essentially.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say that, what does that mean? So if you were working with an athlete, what are you working with them on? You know, if you were doing do you do one-on-ones? Do you do group? How does that work?
Both, like whatever works best for them. Like if it's a team that one is working with, you do team sessions. If they want individual sessions, you do individual sessions with them. If it's an individual sport you're working with, for example, swimming or diving, then you do mostly individual sessions with them. Unless the whole team is your client, then you do group sessions and individual sessions with them.
Okay.
So if you're working with a team, you work on things like team cohesion and collective confidence and teamwork and culture and values, which are mostly like the things I've worked on with teams. If it's individuals, like whatever they think is getting in the way of their performance, like performance anxiety or lack of confidence, lack of motivation, lack of commitment, just things like that. Sometimes there's nothing wrong, and sometimes they just want to work and get better and better and better on something that they want to get better on. So it's not necessary that there's always something lacking in their performance.
Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of enhancing what they already have.
Yeah.
Okay. Do the athletes come to you, or do coaches sometimes say to their athletes, you've got some problem here, you're not hitting your potential. We think it's more of a mental block. We're going to send you to talk to somebody, or
it could be either, honestly. Like sometimes the athletes themselves want to see a mental performance coach or a sports psychologist or a performance psychologist. Sometimes the coaches refer the athletes out, like, I think you should see a mental performance coach. Sometimes the parents refer their kids to a mental performance coach. Like it could be any of those situations, honestly.
What organizations have you got to work with while you've been doing this program?
That has to remain confidential.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
But I guess the question was, do you work more with female athletes or male athletes? Was more
It was definitely a good mix of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find there's a difference when you're working with the male versus a female athlete?
I think working with male athletes in the beginning, it takes a while to build that comfort, especially because I think it's because I come from a different part of the world, like being a woman of color from another country here and consulting with male athletes. It's sometimes like, I think like in the beginning, there's a little bit of like, I don't think discomfort, but just there's just something and it takes a while, but like I've always been able to make and build that. It takes a while to build a rapport with them, if
Yes.
I'm being honest. Like, and when it does, I think it's just lovely. And I've never had like a complete issue, a complete problem of building like a good consulting relationship.
Do you think sometimes that's even because, like you said, when you come from another part of the world, they sit there and say, well, what sports do you play? I mean, things like that, and not understanding that when you're working on the mental piece, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're in. We all have the same mental capacity. You know what I mean? The same stuff going on. Do you think it's something like that sometimes within that barrier or whatever? Or it can start as a barrier until it's, until you work on the relationship.
Yeah, I think in the field in general, a lot of times, like a lot of introductions start with what sport did you play?
Oh.
And and I did play sports, so I do have an answer for that. And I know like being an athlete or having P1 experience, having collegiate experience does like help you understand and empathize with athletes better. And I also don't know why it's the first question. Like, introduce yourself. Where are you from and what sport did you play? Or, and it's not even like, did you have any other performing background? Like, were you a musician or were you a dancer? Like, there could be so much more to performing. I think it's slowly changing, though. I think that, like, question, I hear it lesser now. But yeah, it does start off like that. And I think it's part of that rapport building with your clients is sharing your performance background. So I've always been open to doing that. And sometimes I get questions from them like, oh, what was this like? And what was that like? Oh, you did this. And like, how was it? And it just helps build that relationship, especially in the first session when they're just getting to know you, you're just getting to know them. So often I've always been open to like answering that. And I do get that asked a lot. Yeah.
So what sport did you play?
Good question. So I started off with track and field. I want to say around like 8 years old. My dad was an athlete, so he secretly always wanted me to like get into athletics. But it came a little bit later, and I don't think he was expecting it, but it just happened. And then when I got a little bit older, I got into basketball and played for the school team and everything. I was still like practicing track and field through like while I was doing basketball, and high jump became my sport. And I ended up going to nationals for like representing my state for high jump as well. It wasn't something I necessarily. This is something I always say I enjoyed very much. It was just something I was weirdly good at, and I just did it because I used to win here and there whenever I could, but yeah, it was high jump. And then I tried soccer for a little bit, but I ended up getting a few injuries. And then my mom was like, that is it for this sport.
Go back to high jump.
So, yeah, she's like, go back. But
Yeah.
Okay.
and I also like danced since I was really young. So I used to dance competitively, and it's just been something that's been very, very close to my heart. And a lot of my friendships developed through dance and my teams and everything. So it's something that's actually special to me.
So you did competitive dance?
Yeah.
What was your genre that you did?
Like a lot of Indian folk.
Okay.
There's a lot of Indian folk types. So some of those and freestyle Bollywood, open hip hop, just some of those. Yeah.
I think sometimes people forget the value of dance and just how much stamina you need for it and flexibility and agility and all of those things. I remember a long time ago, the football players were talking about ballet dancers and poo-pooing them. And so they said, okay, come do it. They were like, oh my God, that is intense. It is intense. And, they're coming out all, because it's body parts you don't think you use, I guess.
All right.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So what is your goal with having a master's in this? What comes next for you? when you think long term? I mean, do you go on for a doctorate or?
That is a great question, something that I ask myself every day. And my parents ask me every day. And now you're asking me.
Like, what are you going to do when you grow up?
Well, now I'm happy with my degree. I'm happy with what I got out of it. I'm extremely, extremely satisfied with the knowledge and skills and abilities that my program, my school gave me. And I think there's so much more. I think there's so much more I need to add to my competence. And there will always be. There will always be something that I have to do better and better. And I hope there is. I hope there's not a time where I'm like, oh, I know everything. This is great. There will never.
No, yeah, they keep changing things.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that because it means that something good is happening. It means that something's adding on to what you already know. I would love to do a doctorate at some point. And because this is a weird thing that my friends tell me, but I love school. I love being in school. I love assignments. I love tests. I love exams. I love reading. I love homework. It's just, my friends tell me that's so weird, but it's true.
So you could be a professional student.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, I could. If that's a job. But that's one of the reasons why I do want to go back to school is I just love studying. And I want to build my competence more and I want to get that extra training. So I do think a doctorate sooner or later is in the works.
So even though it's mental performance, you guys aren't licensed though, are you? You don't do a license now.
It depends. Like there are people that go for their licensure and like they have to take the coursework in school and get their hours and then they can get their license if they wish.
But it's not a requirement like for most positions like that, or
the thing, if your job requires you to do mental health related stuff, then it is preferred as a requirement. When it's mental performance, which is different from mental health treatment,
right?
More often than not, it's not a requirement, but it's preferred. Like it's always good to have that extra competence, I guess.
Okay.
All right.
Because I think for somebody who's licensed, it's easier for a licensed person to go into other fields than for other fields to come into license because of the different requirements that you have with that. Because you're right, then you have to have the mental health piece of it. Okay, but that's not something you want to do. You just want to continue with the performance piece of it.
I couldn't do it the last 2 years just because of something that came up. I couldn't. But if I do my doctorate, then it's probably something that I will pursue.
Oh, okay. What's the funnest thing for you about working with athletes?
I would say just when something clicks for them. Like when we're working on something for sessions and sessions and sessions, and they try something out that we talked about, and it works for them. And then they come back and they're like, I did this and it worked so well. I think that's fun because they're happy about it. I'm like secretly jumping and dancing inside of myself. Like, yes, it worked for you. Yeah. And I think that is the most fulfilling, satisfying, fun part, I guess, of working with my clients. And also sometimes just going out on the field to watch them and watching them try things out that we spoke about, or just in general, like anything, just watching them on the field, like practices, games, performances, whatever that is.
Well, I think it's interesting when you say that because, I think sometimes when you're asking people to do stuff outside their comfort zone, they're kind of resistive, like, how is that going to help me run faster or do this or do that? You know what I mean? But then they do try it and it's like, was this a fluke? Or is it going to work the next time I do it? You know what I mean? So I think sometimes there's kind of that resistance, not because they're being resistant to you, but they're resistant to that idea or that change that doesn't resonate with them yet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so valid. And we all do that, don't we? Like whenever it's something that's challenging us to like step outside of our comfort zone, we're all a little bit like hesitant. And then if it works out, we're like, how did that work? Like, it was totally something I've never done before. And something that I learned like a little bit after, like a little later in my career, is that I or my clients don't completely have to step out of our comfort zone. And this is something that one of my mentors told me, is that you can always take things from your comfort zone. You can always take resources, strengths, lessons learned, whatever that is, from your comfort zone. And you can stay a little bit in that, and you can step out a little bit so that you have the resources to support you when you step into something that's pushing you out of your comfort zone. And I saw that working for myself. And I've encouraged like more of my clients to do that too. And yeah, so that it's not completely overwhelming and it's not something completely new and alien to them.
Well, I think people create this idea of what their comfort zone is and not understanding they have this repertoire of skills sets and all of this that they may use in other arenas, but don't realize it's a skill set they can use even in sports. But it feels like a step outside of their comfort zone when it truly isn't. But we use that term, step outside your comfort zone, because people will say, well, that's outside, I don't know no, that just isn't going to work for me. I don't think so. I've never done that before. But then you sit there and talk to them, but you're doing it over here. Mm-hmm. Yep, I think that's different, but it's not. So it's helping them bridge that thing to understand that a lot of the skills or a lot of that mental fortitude they already have. They just don't know that it expands to other arenas, sometimes like sports.
It's an untapped skill for this part as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's fun when they finally realize that.
Yeah, a lot of these things are something they already do. Like either in whether it is in sport or if it is in school or if it is with their home, family, whatever it is, most of these things are things that they already have, not most, like some of these things, if not most, are already things that they have within themselves or they already do. And we just give them that push or that realization or, realization that, oh, I already have this or I have the ability to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about, Erica, she has such a strong passion about females breaking that ceiling in sports and, even getting in, as a female working for a sports team that's all male and kind of going in there and finding that place. What is it like for you working with female? Because we kind of talked a little bit about the male athletes, but what is it like for you to work with female athletes?
And I was talking about this with one of my supervisors like last year. Is after a very long time, I got a full female team of clients. And until then, I was consulting with a lot of male teams. And when I did get that female team, it's just different. Like it's good different. There's something that connects that like womanhood or I don't know what it is, but it just feels different. They're talking like, this is the same thing I told my supervisors. Like I could have been on it, but after such a long time that I've gotten this female identifying team and it's something about that. Like I said, like either it's the womanhood or something about it that just connects us.
So there's a different
and that
camaraderie.
Feels different. Sorry?
There's a different camaraderie between the female clients with you. You feel like a different connection?
Maybe. I'm still figuring it out.
I think one of the things is that I think when we just do gender, there's a connectivity to that because of shared experience or things like that, or understanding that a lot of them are in the same place of trying to ascend sometimes still in a male dominant arena. So there's a lot of those pieces, I think, that binds them together a little bit more. And do you think that they look at you the same way of if you went and said, I've never played a sport, do you think they'd have the same reaction? The same males?
I don't have an answer to that.
Well, I think it would be a hard one to answer because, but I think...
Well, do you usually get that same question from females of what sport do you play? Is that one of their first questions as well?
Yeah, I think all clients at some point ask you. And I love that they ask me because they're interested in getting to know me too.
Right.
And it's more often than not something that I just give as part of my introduction to.
Okay.
But now that you've brought it up, I'm going to be so mindful of listening to their questions and what I'll say.
Well, it's interesting because I think when you listen to the question and then what's the dialogue that follows, do you see what I mean? So with the male athletes, it's when you say, oh, well, yeah, I went to state. Oh, you went to state. How did you, they might go to, how did you do in the sport or whatever. Maybe the female will ask you, did you have a fun time? So the questions are, there's just slight differences in those as to what, and I think that's also when you talk about that connection to women, it might be the follow-up conversation after the same question that they have. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Like I said, it's not something that I've paid too much attention to. And from what I do recollect, I feel like I've gotten like mixed amount of questions or excitement or curiosity about my sport or like what I played.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I think I meant further than that. Sometimes women will expand on things and so I wonder if that's what creates that kind of feel that you feel, that kind of womanhood connection is the follow-up conversations. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I mean? Does one stay on the same topic group of how fast did you run? How high did you jump? Blah, 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 blah. Where the other one maybe you might have said, I developed all these great friendships through dance. Or are you still friends with them? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. But I think sometimes there is that component to it. It's the follow-up conversations that kind of determines that bonding in a different way or whatever it is. Now, let me ask you this. Brothers and sisters, do you have both or?
I have an older brother.
Oh, okay. Is he a lot older than you?
Not. I think like an average number of years.
3?
Like 5.
Okay.
Okay, well, average is about 3.
Yeah. I think average is very different.
I think here, I think it's 3, which is really an interesting thing, but I don't know.
Oh,
3 years.
Okay.
Go figure.
I don't know that.
I retain weird stuff. Anyway.
Does he play sports as well?
He does kickboxing.
Okay.
Okay. Did he do competitive sport in school?
No.
So that's why Dad was looking at you. You're my last hope.
A little bit, but yeah, my brother, although like he's a big part of how I got into sport too. Like he used to watch a lot of sports and obviously I was the younger one. So I used to just sit with him and watch. So I think watching sports is on like my brother also. Like I give him a lot of credit for that and getting me into a lot of sports. Like watch this with me. And
nice.
I used to sit with him and watch them. And yeah, and he got into sport a little bit later, but like when I was playing sport, he wasn't, if that makes sense.
And so now he does boxing?
Kickboxing.
Kickboxing. You never wanted to join him in that?
I actually did kickboxing for a little bit.
What happened?
It was a little bit before COVID, and then the classes stopped. So,
were you enjoying it? Were you enjoying it?
Will I rejoin it? Maybe at some point. Yeah.
Did you enjoy doing it?
Yeah. I actually also grew up playing taekwondo. Like it was one of my first sports.
Okay.
Every day for I think around like 4 to 5 years. Like every day, I had like my taekwondo classes. So I had like a little bit of martial arts in me when I joined kickboxing.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you feel like being in martial arts? Do you feel like that helped you with dance, or that dance helped you with martial arts? Because the movements, some of those movements are very controlled, as in dance, and the extensions and all of those things. Did you think it complemented each other or helped each other? Or when you were in dance, did you want to kick your partner? I don't know.
I think because I've always danced and been an athlete together, I've never known if like one affects the other.
Okay.
But I do think it helps with like things like flexibility and movement, like you said, and stamina and everything else. I think because both are performing like physical performances, right? So I do think I've never actively observed a cause or effect on the two because they've always coexisted in my life.
Right.
But now that you say it, I do think maybe it must have helped.
Well, almost more like they would complement each other, you know.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Not so much the cause and effect, but the complementing of each other, of that fluidity of the motion and stuff like that. You know, you can see in both arenas. I mean, I don't know why it just came to my head because I was just started visualizing all this. I was visualizing that for a moment. Because it makes sense. Because, you know, I have some of my clients who do Taekwondo, things like that, and they talk about, and then they'll also do dance. They learned that they can use it in both arenas, so to speak.
Some of those skills are kind of interchangeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the psychological skills are interchangeable.
In what way? Explain that.
Yeah.
I think, just things like pre-performance routines or mental routines that you do before a dance performance or you do before a game or a match, developing that confidence, having motivation to do either dance or play a sport. If you're struggling with pre-performance anxiety, what do you do before you go to perform? And what do you do before a match in that case? I think psychological skills, definitely, I saw interchange when I was doing both, and they helped. Yeah.
So let me ask you this, you know, when you were performing or when you were, you know, or in sports, did you use visualization? Because I know sometimes when I'm working with athletes, I'll talk with them about visualization because sometimes they're like, if they're doing the sport, they might visualize the win, but they don't visualize how they got from, you know, the starting bell, so to speak, to the end. As an athlete, did you use visualization? Did you use that in the whole entire thing? And is that something you help the athletes you work with currently to do?
Yeah, I'm so excited you asked me that question because I have an exciting story. At least I think it's exciting. But okay, first to answer that question about when I was an athlete, I did use visualization. It was one of those things that I didn't know that I was doing until now. When I look back and I was like, I did use visualization. I did use imagery and a lot of those things. Like back then, I didn't have a name to it. I just did it. And I did. I used to visualize my jumps. If it was a new place that I was doing my jump at, I used to think about my surroundings. I used to think about the mat, the placement, how I would run up to it and make the jump, how I would come back from it if I wasn't able to make that jump. So I did use it. And even in dance, imagining myself on a stage, what kind of stage was it? Was it a little wobbly? How was that? What was the audience looking like? What would my dance look like? I did that, and I just didn't know that I did that until now when I think back to it. And I'm like, I did do that. Mm-hmm. And now I'll tell you why I'm excited for your question because I skied for the first time this year. Oh. I went skiing for the first time, and I went with someone that teaches skiing. So they were kind enough to take me to the mountains with them and give me that first class. And I think I did really well. And they thought that I did really well. And they were like, you're surprisingly good for the first timer. And I was like, really? Are you just kidding? Is this what are you saying? And he was like, yeah, you were really good. I actually fell once. And the other 2 times that I fell was actually when I was just standing. I wasn't doing anything. I was literally just standing and I just fell. I fell once when I was going down a big slope of the mountain. But I'll tell you why even that is interesting. I've always visualized myself skiing. I've always it's just been one of those things. I've thought about me skiing. Just when I'm a daydreamer, I'm always my head is up in the clouds all the time.
Yeah.
And, yeah. When I've thought about myself, and it's been more after I moved to Colorado, how would I look if I was skiing? And I've seen videos, obviously, of skateboarders or skiers that I share with my athletes all the time. So I've seen those videos of people skiing, and I always had an image in my head of how I would ski. And that was the visualization part of it that I think definitely helped me when I was learning how to ski. Mm-hmm. And another thing that did help is balance. So because I can like ice skate a little bit. I think that helps. And just having like that control over your body and that balance that I would think like dance gave me. All those things really helped me when I was skiing, and the visualization I think helped so much. And one thing that the moment I fell, it happened because I was getting too much in my head and I was thinking too much about what I was doing. And this is something that I talk about with my clients is getting too much in your head, like paralysis by analysis is the term that they use. So if you're analyzing every move too much and you don't allow that automaticity of your movement and you get too much in your head, then something can go wrong. And that's exactly what happened to me is one thing that the person that was teaching me told me is the big mountain is the same as the small slope on the mountain. It's just a little longer. So just stay in the present moment and do like one bend at a time. Just think one bend at a time. And that helped me until I realized that second, oh my God, I'm doing this on a big mountain. And I fell. Like,
Well, I think that's some great advice because I know when we're bowling, if I get too much in my head, I foul that up bad.
And I will tell you, it's so amazing because as I'm watching her approach to bowl,
She can tell when I'm thinking too much.
I know immediately. They're like, oh my God, she's thinking too much. And then I'll tell her, you were thinking too much. One of the things I work with my clients on a lot is get out of your head. We analyze everything to death, whether, it's my college students. What are you doing? You already know the information. But what if I do this? What if I'm just like, oh my God, stop. But I will also see that when people are doing sporting events, and I'll tell her, I love to watch sports, and we particularly watch MMA. But I will tell her, I will watch them, and I'll say, something shifted in them. And you can see it. And it's that shift. It's once again, we go to the thought instead of being in the moment. The fluidity of the moment as you're skiing, the fluidity is taking you. But as soon as you start thinking, there's no fluidity. Then it's face first onto the snow.
Yeah, it's definitely just like trusting your ability. It's just trusting that you've been doing this for a while and you know what you're doing. So just trust that and trust yourself to do that. Even though I'd been doing this for 2 hours before, whatever, I felt, but that day, I say that I fully bought into what I do. I was like, this works. And what I do works. And I was like, it's worth it. My degree is worth it. All the money I spent on it was worth it. And it was I still think about it. Like, it was such an exciting day for me, time for me to put into practice what I do. Mm-hmm. Because I did not learn a new sport after that. I didn't make a lot of time to play another sport the last 2 years. But once I did, and I realized how much I missed it. And now I was able to apply all these psychological skills, mental skills into practice and to see that it worked. Or maybe I'm just being biased. I don't know. Maybe but
don't you find in working with your athletes, I think it's in working with anybody, that they become their greatest obstacle? It's not oftentimes their skill set. They may have the most amazing skill sets and they'll still fall short. They'll still fall short until they realize that it is their thought process that's getting in the way of them truly excelling and showing that potential and experiencing that potential. Just like with you on that slope, you were doing it, and then you became your obstacle. But then you put it away, and then you realize, and I think that's kind of what a cool thing is too when you do that, is then you're able to take that experience into your job. And then it's like, because oftentimes, well, yeah, how do you know that worked? Or because people say, well, do you even do that or whatever? Or maybe that's just as a therapist, I don't know. But no, you'll have that. And then you can sit there and say, oh my gosh, I have a story to tell you.
But that must have been a great boost of confidence to know that, yeah, these skills do work. And when you go back to your job, that you are providing them with something that's really helpful.
That's a tangible example that you can share.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely one of those, like you said, Kirsty. And it just excites me even more now. Like when you then has visualization with something that's like you've done your work that's worked for you, I was like, I have a story to tell you. And it's so exciting to me. And I love that it happened. I love the way that all of it happened. And some skills work for people, some don't. Like I always say, actually, imagery and visualization is something that a lot of my clients, like they say, like, it just doesn't work for me. Like I can't do it. And I say, that's okay. Let's find something else. And there's so much, like they put that pressure on themselves. Like this is something that all my teammates are doing and all of them are able to do. And I'm not able to do this. And I'm like, it's okay. Like we can find something that works best for you because we're all different and we all have different strengths. Let's find what your strength is, what you do best. Let's try that.
Yeah.
So like I said, even though it works for me, it could be something else works some better for someone else. Yeah.
Do you know what I find is that when it's hard for people to use visualization and imagery, I think, because as a play therapist, when I would do family play therapy, how many adults didn't know how to play? In order to play, you have to imagine. It's not what's literally happening in front of you. You know, kids create all these magnificent stories and they're living through that. And so they use their imagination. What I've noticed is as people get into adulthood, oftentimes they forget that piece. It's not that they lack it, it's just buried. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, it would be like telling those same people to go do imaginary play. No, I don't do that.
Yeah. You lose the ability to pretend somehow, it seems like, as people age. It's not that they absolutely lose it. It's just that they need direction and finding it again sometimes.
And then oftentimes they're using that skill, though, in other arenas. Mm-hmm. And what I love is when I'm talking to athletes who play video games and they can't use imagery. And I'll say, when you're playing your video game, I said, what are you doing? I'm imagining what's going to happen next. Or I'm thinking what's going to happen next. I says, well, how do you know that? Well, I'm seeing it in my head. Well, what do you think that is? Once again, it's a skill set that we have that we use only in one arena, and then we don't use it in other arenas. It's such a fascinating thing how our brain works and how it works for us and against us all at the same time. You know, makes you wonder why people don't know whether they're coming or going. You know,
I always say this is that we literally don't know how powerful the human mind is.
Oh my God.
Like we don't know what it's capable of. We don't know what all is going on inside of it and what all it's just how powerful it is. And it's so fascinating to me all the time.
I love the brain. And I tell people, you know, it's funny to me when we look at our brain, it's the most, no computer system on earth even comes close to what our brain does every second. You know, and I tell people, and as smart as it is, it's also very dumb. It is. It can't do two opposites and understand. It's like I said, you can't sit there and be logically thinking with a really strong emotion. You think you're being logical, but you're not, you know, and all these things I said. So as brilliant as it is, it just shows that it's also fragile in a way. Mm-hmm. And that place where we get in the way of ourselves by overthinking or not having that ability to understand that our brain is retaining everything that we do. We just struggle to access it. You know, you say, I love studying, I love exams, I love this. It's probably because you already know how to access. Do you see what I mean? So you don't go into an exam thinking, oh my God, I don't know the information. In your mind, you're thinking, of course I know the information, I already read it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I panic so much before an exam.
Really?
Like,
why would you panic before an exam?
Since I was a child, I've always panicked a lot before every test or exam. Like I'm studying till the last minute and I'm revising again and again and again. There have been times that I fell ill before an exam, right before it, because I was so stressed about it. And I never believed completely that I knew everything. But when I go into an exam and I see the question paper and then I give it, that's when I'm okay, I like doing this and I like writing my exam. And when it's done and I feel good about it. And so it's something that actually came much later in my life when I started enjoying study a lot more at that point. But it was not always the
Well,
same.
once again, you realized at some point your brain was getting in the way of the knowledge you already had. Kind of like when you were skiing, you'd watch probably so many videos. So in your head, you already knew the technique. The instructor just reinforced the technique you already knew.
Yeah.
But then you got to that, you studied. And then when you fell is when you realized, I got to study some more. Becomes that really becomes that mental piece of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So the
Let's
brain.
see how I ski the next time. I'm so curious to see.
Oh,
I
this
hope
is
I don't
exciting.
get too overconfident.
You'll be like a professional then.
Definitely not even close. But I also had a really good instructor. Like they taught me all the basics and so staying in the moment and all of that really helped. Like, yeah, it was good.
It makes a huge difference when you have a really good teacher too. So, and how they explain
For
things
sure.
and that. The people that you've worked with, I know you've mentioned that you have worked with teams. How often is it that you're working one-on-one versus with teams? Is it primarily that you have teams that you work with, or how does that go?
So throughout the season, I would say it's preferred that we meet at least once a week. And if they want an extra session, let's say before an important game, then we do that maybe twice a week. And then it depends on how the organization's structured. So then you offer whether they want to meet you individually or not.
Okay.
I always keep that option open. Like if you need to meet with me individually, then just reach out or however you're comfortable. And yeah, so if they do need individual services, then they let you know.
Okay.
And you can meet with them outside of that team setting.
Oh, okay.
Nice. You know what I think is interesting, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but you probably have been in the thing, but how many now different organizations from every sport have the mental performance people involved with them. And how many athletes, you're hearing more athletes not only talking about the mental performance piece, but also being more involved with their mental health period, going out and seeking the help, because there's a lot of anxiety around playing the sport, especially when everybody wants you to win.
Right. Competitively.
And when you're doing that competitive sport, it's so much different. But then it's always competitive, but I think when you put money in it, then it becomes like there's an added expectation of you. But at the end of the day, there's not. You're still playing the same sport. Like the ski instructor told you, it's the same hill, just, little increments. But as soon as you thought of the big hill, I think that's like people who have these amazing skills and they start thinking about the money and the obligation, but it's still the same sport.
Yeah. I think a big part of that is what really motivates that athlete. Like, is it the money that motivates them? And at the same time, acts as an added pressure that I'm getting paid so much money, I need to play just as good. Or letting, I guess, like the money define their skill set or that pressure that I have. Actually, no, I'm repeating myself, but that or if it's something that's internal, like I'm playing this sport because I just love being in this room with all these people and playing with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think motivation, whether it's like comes from within them or the sources outside of them, it's a big factor of what drives them and at the same time what comes in the way of their performance.
Right.
It's really cool. Hopefully, people who listen to our podcast will now know about it's because it's an up and coming field. And if you like sports, but maybe you don't play sports or you don't play them competitively or whatever, but you still want to be an active part of sports, you can now do this. This field is, like I said, it's an up and coming field. Sports psychology is just on the rise. And it's something that is kind of a neat thing that we're actually now looking at the whole athlete versus just how fast they can run or throw or whatever it is that they're doing. We're looking at the whole person now. And I think in doing that, we will increase the longevity of athletes, and we will also increase when the sport ends, them being okay.
Yes.
So wonderful that you're doing this. We wish you the best of luck with it, not only in the job that you're doing, but your next time on the ski slope. And next time you're on the ski slope, you can sit there and say, no, I will be in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Shan and Christy, for having me on this podcast. I appreciate it very much. I enjoyed talking to you all about this and completely nodding out on something I really love doing.
Awesome.
Well, it's always great when we get people on who love what they do, because that's one of the things we talk about. If you're going to do something, have a passion for it, love what you do, so it doesn't feel like that job you're going to, and you just have this different energy about you when you do it. And we can definitely feel that energy when we talk about this. And it's always okay to nerd out with this because we love it. So
Appreciate that.
thank you, everyone, for joining us. We
Yes.
will be back next week. We hope you have a fantastic week. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.